Now, losing something is a pretty common experience, isn't it? And looking for something is something we do when something matters to us. I'd been married a few years when I managed to lose both my wedding and engagement ring. I'd been playing baseball, and my assumption is it came off with my mitt. And you better believe I looked for those rings. I went back to the sports shed, I looked through every glove, I walked up and down that field. I asked others, I checked the lost property, but eventually I had to accept that my rings were lost. Now, if I told you that I lost my rings and didn't look for them, you would probably make some assumptions about whether those rings meant anything to me. Because we look for things that matter, don't we? And I'm guessing many of you know that frantic feeling of trying to find something important, whether it's a passport, wallet, keys, a document you accidentally deleted at work, the favorite toy of a grandchild, the dummy of a crying baby. And if you've been desperately searching for something, then you probably also know that wonderful feeling of joy, of relief, when it finally shows up. And because losing something and finding something is such a common experience, it's easy to come to a chapter like Luke 15 and hear these stories about something being lost and found and kind of gloss over them. Like, well, of course, if you lost a sheep, you would look for it. And of course, if you lost a coin, you would look for it. And of course, if you lost a son, which is the third story there, the prodigal son that we didn't read, of course, you would welcome that son home. But Jesus' parables are meant to disrupt us. They often contain something outrageous, something to make us sit back and go, oh, I hadn't thought about God or the kingdom in that way. So what is it about Luke chapter 15 that might capture our attention? I don't think it's that something was lost and found, but rather the risk that the searcher is willing to take in order to retrieve or welcome home what was lost. And this tells us something of God's heart for the lost. And as a biblical church, we want to reflect God's heart for the lost. We're in a sermon series right now. Actually, we're finishing it. Today is the last sermon, Blueprints for a Biblical Church. And the title for today's sermon is A Biblical Church Reaches the Lost. And what we're going to do is take a look at Luke chapter 15 this way. We're going to begin by looking at the context. What is it that causes Jesus to tell these stories, the dinner parties he's been attending? Then we're going to look at the desperate searchers just in the first two stories, the story of the sheep and the coin. And then we're going to look at the delight that is expressed when the lost comes home. And then, of course, how we can participate as a biblical church in reaching the lost. Before we dive in, there is one thing I want to draw your attention to, and that is a book called For People Like Us by Dr. Luke Vanderway. Now, I read scholars and experts anytime I'm preparing a sermon. You should be concerned if I didn't do that. We don't normally mention them, but I loved this book and I found it had fresh insights, and I'm leaning fairly heavily on Dr. Vanderway's insights into this chapter, so I thought it was worth publicly mentioning his work there, and you might also like to read that book. So when Dr. Vanderway begins his discussion on this chapter, he opens with a question. Who is God for? And I think this is a very important question. Who could the creator of the universe be for? And in this context, it's a little bit confusing because Jesus is surrounded by wildly different people. On one hand, you have the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, people who would consider themselves righteous and holy, and all those good religious words. And on the other hand, we have the tax collectors and sinners. tax collectors are known as traitors because they are collecting money from their fellow Jews, taking some for themselves and handing a lot of it to the Roman government, who are using it to oppress the Jews. And sinners is a fairly broad term to describe people that are not meeting the living standard set by the Pharisees. And Jesus is hanging out with this group of people, the tax collectors and sinners. See, he's going to their dinner parties. And in an honor-shame culture, when you go to someone's house, you are bestowing honor on that house. And when you sit down and share a meal with someone, you are welcoming them. You are affirming them. And the Pharisees are looking on at this and muttering. Jesus, this man of God who does miracles, hanging out with the wrong kind of people. You see, the word Pharisee, it actually means separate ones. Their whole identity, their whole way of being is about having nothing to do with people on this side of the equation. Before we go on, I just want to pause because we very often hear about the Pharisees in our Bible stories, and they're the bad guys, the villain. But I think we might be able to relate with what the Pharisees are doing here, because we all judge others, for better or for worse. So we like to know people's postcodes. Where are they from? How economically stable are they? We judge people if they have children by which school they send their children to, if they went to uni, which uni they went to. Even Bible colleges, you go to the right or the wrong Bible college. We love to judge people by their level of English, maybe by which country or region they're from. I'm from New South Wales, and I'm going to tell you that does not make me popular around here. But we also judge people on really personal things. Things like how many times they've been married, whether or not they live with a disability, and really frivolous things like what kind of car do they drive or how many followers do they have on Instagram. We love to judge people, and we judge people by who they spend time with. And this judging of others, we judge others and we are judged by others, raises the question, well, who is God for? Is there a group of people that God is for? Because the Pharisees think they have it nutted out. It's this group of people here. But what we learn from these stories is that the Pharisees have it wrong. Who is it God could be for? Is it just this small group of people who apparently have their life all together? Or could God's love expand? Could God's love expand to include people like tax collectors and sinners? And the answer in Luke chapter 15 isn't just yes, but it's yes, yes, yes. Because Jesus is going to tell 3 parables with effectively the same meaning, which is an unusual thing for Jesus to do. But this repetition is designed to get our attention. Repetition is designed to get our attention. It's like Jesus is saying, I told you once, I told you twice, I told you 3 times. God cares about the lost. That is the meaning of this passage and the heart of Luke's gospel. So this means however you classify people, God is for them and wants them to come home. So let's take a look now at what it means for God to be for the lost by looking at the desperate searchers in these first 2 stories. And I actually want to focus on the desperate search because I think that's what stands out here. Now, imagine, I tell you, I lost my wedding ring. I searched for it. I walked up and down that field, didn't find it. So the next day, I hired an excavator and a crew of people, and we showed up and we dug up that field, sifting through every bit of dirt looking for these rings. you would either think I'm mad or these rings are worth an awful lot of money. Because who spends that kind of money? Who takes that kind of risk trying to find something that is lost? Well, the people in our stories are taking risks in order to find what is lost. So if we take a look at the shepherd, it's pretty good for the one sheep that sheep is found. Have you ever wondered about the 99? Sheep are notoriously stupid. You cannot leave them unsupervised. They are a danger to themselves. And so some commentators try and make this parable more sensible by saying, well, the shepherd would have been in a team of shepherds. So we don't have to worry about the 99 because they were well supervised and one went off. But Dr. Vanderway says that it's not unusual for one shepherd to take care of 100 sheep. Actually, I don't think we're supposed to make this parable sensible. We're supposed to think, you would do that? You would leave the 99 sheep and go searching for one? What a risk. You're willing to lose it all in order to find the one. Because for a shepherd, losing a sheep isn't just sad, it's their livelihood, it's their reputation. But they put it all on the line because they want to find the one sheep. What about the second story? The story of the woman and the lost coin. It sounds a lot safer, doesn't it? I've searched for things at home. I didn't feel like I was in imminent danger. But one of the things about this story is that it is quite possible, as Dr. Vanderway points out, that this woman is poor. It doesn't quite translate for us because the currency is different. But 10 silver coins is apparently about just enough money to feed a poor family for 2 weeks. So if you lose one coin, that is days without being able to feed your family. And if you live paycheck to paycheck, you understand how important it is to account for every dollar you have. Even if you don't, losing 10% of your income is a pretty big deal. So this woman needs to search for the coin. And you're thinking, well, it still doesn't sound risky. Well, her situation, she probably lived in a small stone room without very much natural light. So do you notice a detail that Jesus puts into this story? To search for the coin, she had to light a lamp. And if any of you have paid an electricity bill recently, you know electricity is expensive. It costs money to light up a room. And that is true in her situation. Oil is expensive. She is burning expensive oil in order to find this coin. And at some point, the cost of trying to find the coin is going to outweigh the benefit of finding it. She's taking a risk. She's banking on it being worth it. She desperately needs this coin. And when you are desperate, you don't always act in a rational way. You do what you need to do in order to retrieve what was lost. And this tells us something of the heart of God. God is willing to take a risk in finding us. He's willing to send Jesus, his son, who is going to risk being misunderstood, who is going to risk the Pharisees muttering against him for hanging out with the wrong people. He's going to risk being betrayed, risk being falsely accused, risk being executed. And he's going to do it because what was lost is so very valuable that it is worth the risk. The other thing that makes the search necessary is that sheep and coins do not find themselves. You can't just sit in your lounge chair and hope it shows up. I lost my wedding ring around 25 years ago, I think, and not once has it magically appeared on my bedside table. The only way that is showing up is if somebody finds it. The sheep and the coin need to be looked for. So you know what else can't save themselves? Tax collectors and sinners. There's no redemption for you if you are a tax collector. You're a traitor. You've been written off. You're not coming back into society. Sinners, well, whatever they do, they're never going to meet the standard of the Pharisees. They need someone to welcome them, someone to make a way home for them. But do you know who else can't save themselves? Pharisees and teachers of the law. They've got a system, but it's not really working, not for them or anyone else. You know, it's really interesting. The Pharisees and Jesus actually both want sinners to be saved. The Pharisees would like this group of people to somehow get it together and come back to God, but the way that they are proposing is by following all of these rules that go way above and beyond anything in Scripture, and it is failing not only this group, but themselves. Being separated from others isn't saving anyone. A search party needs to go out, a rescue party to both groups. And here is Jesus knowing that the way to bring people home is through relationship, through welcoming them and letting them hear the good news that God is for them. Jesus has made it his life's mission to seek and save the lost. It is his honor to do this because he knows the absolute joy when the lost is found. Which brings me to our third point, the delight that is shown in these stories. These stories are obviously very short. And one of the things that struck me when I was preparing this sermon is how much of the story is actually dedicated to the delight, the party that is thrown when the lost is found. And we don't tell stories like this. If we're watching a movie, 90 minutes of the movie is dedicated to the highs and lows of the search, the struggle, the effort that goes into finding the lost, and then we just have a little 5-minute wrap-up at the end and we turn it off and we're all satisfied. But the way Jesus tells this story, that the search is very short and most of the time is dedicated to this over-the-top celebration. The shepherd didn't even take that sheep back to the 99. He took it home to the village to say, guess what? I found it, guys. I think they would have been thinking, and it's here? It is an over-the-top crazy celebration. And this woman who desperately needs that money to feed her family is calling in her neighbors and saying, I found it. She wants everybody to celebrate this moment with her. It is over the top, but it is so joyous because it means so much to the searcher. But there's this extra little moment of joy in the story of the shepherd. The shepherd's joy doesn't begin when he takes that shepherd to his neighbors, sheep to his neighbors. The shepherd's joy begins when he finds the sheep. He's been searching, and finally this sheep is found. And that's the moment he rejoices. And this is meaningful because he still needs to carry that sheep home. That sheep is an adult sheep, which is upwards of 50 kilograms. Very often, our children's stories about this, Jesus has a little lamb. It's not that little hard. Come on, little guy, I'm going to take you home. But he's probably needing to pick up this grown sheep and put it on his shoulders. My husband and I have been watching a TV show called Physical, where the world's best athletes compete. And one of their challenges was picking up a 50-kilogram crate and carrying it 10 meters up a few set of stairs, and they were struggling. This shepherd needs to pick up this sheep and carry it over uneven terrain, up mountains, down valleys, through the heat of the sun in order to save it. And he is rejoicing because the cost of saving this sheep doesn't matter to him. What matters is this sheep is coming home. The cost pales in comparison to the joy of being able to say to his friends and neighbors, I found one. I found my sheep. And Jesus is the same. He knows not only the risk of saving us, but the cost. He knows that he will need to bear the weight of the cross, literally, as he carries his own cross. He knows the oppressive forces of sin and evil and death and injustice, but he's willing to carry it because he knows on the other side of the cross, when he has beaten sin and death, he can rejoice as people come with him through death to the other side, to new life, and the joy of being able to say to his heavenly Father and the heavenly host, another one came home. It is worth everything to Jesus for you to come home to him. And if you have not done that yet, do it today. If you are feeling lost, Jesus is the seeker and saver of the lost. He will pick you up and carry you like that shepherd. He will be like the woman who rejoices over you, who wants everybody to know, this was precious to me and it is home now. All you need to do is offer up a simple prayer. Jesus, I am so lost. Will you find me? And it is his life's work to find you. He will joyfully carry you home. Friends, Jesus came because God cares about the lost. He cares about you. Ask to be found. But I know many of us gathering this morning would know that. We've been found. We've sung songs this morning celebrating the goodness of God running after us. We know that joy. So what does it mean for us now? Now do we just sit back on our lounges and wait to see what happens? Now, Jesus has a purpose for us. And his purpose is that we join in his mission. We get to participate in his reaching the lost. And so what does that mean? Well, I think it means we aren't people who are judgmental. The only opinion that matters is God's. And every person is seen as valuable and worthy of the risk and cost Jesus was willing to bear. That's the only way we classify people. If they don't know Jesus, they are lost, they matter to God, and they matter to us. And reaching the lost means we need to accept and embrace and even celebrate that there is a risk and a cost involved to reaching the lost. It's not always easy or simple. We want to continually be dreaming up ways we can connect with our community, where we can show love to our neighbours and workmates and school communities. It's part of who we are, part of our DNA. And I mentioned before that I'm not normally here. I'm at High Wycombe. And one of the reasons that I'm here today is to celebrate with you that today is the 12-month anniversary of the High Wycombe campus. So it was 12 months ago today we held our first ever service. And launching a campus is a risky and costly endeavour. But it is something that Riverton Baptist Community Church chose to do. And I can tell you, I have the privilege of seeing God at work. We have met people who have been disconnected from their faith, but are coming back and thinking, I think there's something to this. I need to reconnect. We are meeting people who have never met Jesus before. It is exciting times at High Wycombe, but there is a risk and a cost to that. And that risk and that cost continues. We are 1 year in, but we still have a long way to go. But I want to celebrate that you were willing to do that as a church community. And thank you for being willing to do that as a church community. Because you are right where God's heart is, in seeking and saving the lost. And as you continue to dream dreams here, as we continue to start our ministries, which are kicking up with the school term, get involved. Take the risk. Sign up to be part of that search party so we can hear more and more stories of people coming home. We get to celebrate the joy of knowing another one has life in Jesus. And we do it all because of who God is. God cares about the lost. God cares about the lost. God cares about the lost. And so we will too.